I went into Kingdom Come Deliverance with the expectation that I would drop it after a few hours. Maybe like me, you saw many people talking about how they struggled to get into this game and ended up dropping it. The reviews and comments I read mentioned the lack of the ability to save whenever I want and awkward, clunky feeling mechanics. It sounded like a game that was focused more on being realistic than fun. And I'm usually someone who's a huge advocate for games to be unrealistic, as realism in games tends to result in losing fun in some way or another. Kingdom Come Deliverance managed to prove me wrong about that. The game is a medieval knight simulator where you start as an illiterate blacksmith's son who has no skills. You feel pretty useless at the start of the game. If you take the time to learn how to succeed in the world and put in real hours actually improving at the skills in the game, then you can have an incredible experience playing this game. The progression systems are designed in such a way that you yourself have to actually improve at them, not just your character. In another game, you might gain passive bonuses that make you this percent amount stronger or this percent amount better at doing something, or the more enemies you defeat, the better you get. But it's not like that in Kingdom Come. In Kingdom Come, you have to actually learn the systems that are behind the mechanics that you're engaging with and improve at those. And if you do that, then you get better results, and it's a completely different way of playing a game that I've never experienced before. In Kingdom Come, you do have levels, you do level up, there are passive bonuses, these things do exist, but the game is balanced in such a way that learning and improving at the actual mechanics of the game will reward you far more than simply grinding some XP. And that is the brilliance of this game. Practicing the unique combat system and learning where certain plants grow in the world will make you have a much easier time engaging with the other systems, such as alchemy. And it also has the benefit of engaging you with the world itself, which leads to a much greater sense of immersion, and it feels amazing. The complaints that people have are valid and understandable, and I won't defend the need to have an item to save wherever you want. It's just not for me. Some people need to be able to walk away and do things in real life, and having to stock up on save potions can be a pain for sure, but it's not anywhere close to being as bad as I imagined, and in fact it didn't bother me at all once I got used to it after a couple hours. This is because there's many camps located around the world that let you save and sleep, and you can save and exit the game wherever you like, so really the only limiting factor is if you're trying to save scum. And I admit I am normally a terminal save scummer, and that's why limited saves initially turned me off of this game. But the immersion I got as a result was actually a really interesting lesson for me to learn as a lifelong gamer, and I might consider embracing consequences more in other games in the future, thanks to the experience that I had playing Kingdom Come Deliverance. The combat system is another thing that people complain about, and it can be frustrating at times. Going up against an enemy, or even worse, a group of enemies that are all stronger and better equipped than you, is a quick and speedy way to an unsatisfying death where you felt like there was truly nothing you could do to survive. The truth is that you must learn the combat and practice regularly at the start in order to get the hang of it, and you will notice yourself having a better and better time once you understand all the ways you can defend and attack to succeed in combat. Again, this is what I mean by the game requiring you to actually improve at the systems and learn the systems, and not just have your character sort of passively get better as you play the game. And it works brilliantly as you feel close to learning a skill in real life, like you actually have to put in effort and learn what makes a good knight and how to succeed in combat. Fighting groups of enemies will still be difficult, but it should be, as you're not superhuman, and having 4 fully grown men in armor who are trained warriors should not be something that's easy to overcome for a former peasant who could barely swing a sword a few months ago. So while no, you don't get the power fantasy of a typical RPG, you do get the satisfaction of overcoming odds, and that never goes away or becomes too easy due to having the best armor and weapons in the game. The game also has archery, which is very difficult when you start, as there's no indicator to show where the arrow will fly. Not to say that indicator eventually appears, it doesn't. You never get an indicator, but what you do get is the ability to pay attention to the way that your hand sways and how the distance from the target affects the arrow flight path, and all these kind of different things that go into normal archery. So it almost kind of feels like you're doing like as close to real archery as I've ever done in any game. Leveling up the skill does help a little bit with sway and things like that, but nothing really helps more than just practicing at an archery range and getting the feeling for the timing and reference points that you can use to aim the bow to hit your target. Having to take care of your character and their equipment is normally something I would stray away from in games as well. Things like hunger and thirst and having to sleep and wash yourself are all important to the gameplay. These things usually are restricted to certain hardcore modes in other games, but they are unavoidable in Kingdom Come Deliverance, and once again, the camps play such a huge role in helping to mitigate the issues that I would have had. The pot of food that's constantly present in each one of the camps, and also in pretty much every person's house that you enter, it means that there's always easy access to food as long as there's a villager camp nearby, which there always is. Sleeping is an easy way to save progress, so you never go long without doing that anyway. And keeping yourself clean is simple enough. There's plenty of tubs of water outside that you can find. You just click one button and boom, you're done. And doing a decent job of getting clean is simple enough thanks to that. But you can also just go to bathhouses, which are a bit rarer, but they do provide a lot of bonuses that you wouldn't otherwise get, and so they are worthwhile to seek out nonetheless. Maintaining your equipment also isn't as much as a struggle as you might initially think it's going to be. You're often making regular trips to blacksmiths or traders anyway in order to sell the items that you've acquired, and so you're never far away from a grindstone to sharpen your blade, or a skilled armorer or tailor to fix up your clothes and armor. All this to say is that maintaining your character feels like a natural part of the game, and it's not something that's a chore to deal with as it would in other games. The accessibility of NPCs and items you can use to fix yourself up plays a huge role in the mechanic feeling satisfying, along with certain skills that you can get that actually amplify the effects that you get if you maintain your armor well yourself. I will say that the game makes you wait a lot. This is the most I've ever used a wait mechanic in a game, and I understand it's there to kind of further realism, but it cost me a lot of time, and I think I would have been okay with it if the game had been clearer about when exactly I needed to wait until. But a lot of quests were really vague, and they would say something like wait until nighttime, but not which exact time at night, whereas the quest could quite simply have said, yeah, they usually meet up around 9, so then I could just go there at that time. It would have made it so much easier and would have saved a lot of frustration for me. And you can always make the argument that gets rid of realism and things like that, but this is where I come back to, like, realism is not always the way to go with games. I also had problems with following characters. This is by no means something new to games. I'm sure everyone hates following a character that's going half the speed as your walking speed. In this game I felt it a lot more, and I think that's because of their realism aspect that they tried to go for. People really take their time going places in this game, and so you basically have to wait for them constantly, and sometimes if you wait too much then they'll just disappear, and then you don't know where they've gone and when they're going to come back the next day, and it can cause a lot of trouble with the NPCs in this game, and a good amount of frustration as well. The main story you follow does a good job of setting up what life is like for people in these times and how religion and the ruling class can affect various parts of daily life. You'll have conversations with many people who have various roles in medieval society, which gives you plenty of opportunities to gain an understanding of not only their role in the game's world, but also the role that you want your character to take. I did feel that the game pushes you towards being a bit more morally grey than I tend to be in games. Usually, for the very least my first playthrough, I play like your typical good guy hero who does everything good, is nice to everyone, and I kind of felt like on this first playthrough this time it was pretty difficult to do, because while I also do tend to play a good guy, I also try to do everything I can on a first playthrough, and that usually means that I have to kind of play a little bit morally grey. But in this game in particular, there were a lot of quests, even some main story quests, where you need to lockpick and you need to pickpocket and you need to stealth. Particularly the stealth mission, there was one towards the end of the game where you had to stealth and knock this guy out, and my stealth was way too low to do it, and so I ended up getting into fights constantly that I didn't want to get into, and I ended up failing that part of the quest, which I wasn't quite happy about. But it's part of the game, and it's part of me failing to accept consequences in games a lot of the time. This is me, terminal save scummer, so I tried a few times to go back and get it to work, but the percentage chance was so low that it just didn't work, so I ended up taking the consequences, which is something I normally wouldn't do in a game, but I ended up being fine, and like I say, it's a good lesson for me to have to go through things like that, I think, which I'm glad that Kingdom Come forced me to do. The side quests are also quite good in the game, and they have a nice variety to them. There was a couple that I felt were generally bad, but overall they had good characters and they served to further the experience of the world, and it wasn't just another way to gain some XP or gear like they might be in other games. I would liken it more towards The Witcher 3, where it felt like every side quest that you were doing kind of had some sort of effect on the world and added to your immersion and the importance of your character being in that world and actually meaning something. So I hope that if you were on the fence about Kingdom Come Deliverance, that this video has convinced you to try it, as it was genuinely one of the best experiences I've had in gaming this year, and I'm already looking forward to playing the DLC and trying the second game in the future. So subscribe if you want to see that, and thanks for watching.